All right. Are we ready? I think we're ready. Okay, so you all were at the lunch today, right? So I'm hoping that I'm not going to be duplicating everything that David and Mike shared with us, but rather kind of give kind of maybe a complementary perspective of what it looks like on the librarian user side of the whole Koha, EDS, and OpenAthens package as it is. So for me, I'm going to try to be as concise, but yet tell a story of what our journey has been. And before I go any further, I just want to give you a little small kind of like placement, who am I and where do I come from and what is my library like. So my name is Micah Kennedy Stevens. I am the seminary librarian at Lancaster Theological Seminary in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. We're a small academic library. We're also a standalone seminary. We're not affiliated with another college or university. So our collection right now stands at about 120,000 volumes, and it's getting smaller because we're in the middle of a huge reading project. We have a student body of about 100 students. In academic world, we use full-time equivalent to indicate what our student population is based on how full-time student hours. So our FTE, full-time equivalent enrollment, is about 80. So we're very, very small. Our library, I am technically considered a solo librarian. So I administer the library and oversee pretty much everything in the library department. I'm also a faculty member, so I have faculty responsibilities on top of that. I have a full-time circulation manager who also has a library degree, but she is in a paraprofessional position. And then I have a part-time acquisitions and cataloging assistant who used to manage a bookstore. So all of her library background has been what she's gained in experience in teaching from working at the library since the campus bookstore closed. So that's who we are. We're small. We're fearless. Small but mighty. And so this is our story. Let's see. Why are we not advancing? There we go. Okay, so our origins. Pre-Koha, this is what our collection and access situation looked like. We had a few EBSCO databases. We did not have any databases provided by any other vendor. EBSCO was our vendor. We had a few ebooks. Apparently sometime in the past, they purchased a net library collection of like 400 books or 500 books or something like that, most of which had nothing to do with theology, religion, or anything, but they were cheap, so they bought them. And those were net library books. Net library had kind of gotten sucked up by EBSCO, so again, those are all available through EBSCO. We also had a few online journal subscriptions. EBSCO is our subscription management service, so again, everything's all neatly wrapped up in EBSCO. You should be very thankful that I have such a wonderful relationship with our EBSCO sales rep, because that made the deal. If I hadn't had such a good relationship with my EBSCO sales rep, none of this probably would have happened. The way that access was provided was we had IP authentication on campus. Very simple, easy, straightforward setup. I think everybody pretty much, that's the default. Then we had referring URL technology for off-campus use. So what referring URL, does anybody not know what referring URL technology is? Okay, so I don't need to explain that. The pathways for getting access. So the IP authentication, you had to be connected to our on-campus wireless network or using some kind of wired computer in the library. But to get these referring URLs for off-campus users, the students and faculty would find their link in the course registration system. So they would have to go into that system to find the link, okay? Now, of course, does the library have any access, any control over that? No. Even when I first got there, I said, we need to change this link, or, this isn't the right way I want people to. Even the registrar could not figure out how to get it off right away. So that was a problem. For alumni, because we have one of our databases, we do have, we pay an extra license fee to share access with our alumni. The alumni would get their referring URL from the institution's website. And again, they had to log into the website, which was a whole separate thing. The alumni relations office would monitor who was requesting access and getting them a website login to be able to see that referring URL link. So just not an ideal situation. So along came a new librarian and Koha. So I was hired in May of 2014, and we migrated to Koha in December of 2014. So things happened pretty quickly with that. Another thing that I did pretty quickly in my first year is I expanded the amount of e-resources that we were making available to our students. So I added more EBSCO databases, but I also added the Project Muse Humanities collection. So Project Muse runs on a separate platform. And also added a product, a resource called Oxford Biblical Studies Online, which is managed by Oxford University Press. So now our users had 3 different platforms to go to. I also expanded our EBSCO ebook collection, but again, sticking with EBSCO, and I converted a lot of our journal subscriptions to online, as many as I could. It made economic sense to do that. So we actually reached a point where we had more online journal subscriptions than we had print. Again, we're still in the same place with access, IP authentication on campus, and referring URL for off-campus users. At this point, OpenAthens, this was in spring of 2015, 2014, spring of 2015. At this point, OpenAthens, it was on my radar, but that was before the partnership with EBSCO. And so, I had looked at the EduServe website, thought, oh, this is interesting, but, again, it's not something that I'm really willing to pay a lot of money for right now. I looked at EasyProxy. We thought about doing a self-install of EasyProxy or self-hosted instance of EasyProxy. We couldn't even get past installing the trial software, though, because our server had a more up-to-date processor than what the EasyProxy software would support. So we just kind of dropped that and said, well, referring URL works okay now. Project Muse supported referring URL. Oxford did not, but they said, and I couldn't do embedded username and password, like encoding the link. I couldn't do that. But they did say that it was okay that I just distribute a username and password. And I'm thinking, how is that more secure than, encoding a URL with a username and password? But that's what we did. So, again, you either have to be connected to the campus network, or the way I moved the referring URLs to the OPAC note field in Koha, and was able to set it up so that it would recognize that Koha URL. Any traffic to EBSCO or to Project Muse would recognize that it was coming from Koha. So a user just logs into their Koha account. They see the OPAC note. They can click on one of those links. Then for Oxford Biblical Studies Online is where I had the username and password and a link. Go here. Here's the username and password you'll use. So the shortcomings of this is that the OPAC notes were extremely cumbersome to maintain. Now I have an asterisk here because they're no longer that cumbersome to maintain, because we sponsored a development to add the OPAC note to the batch patron modification tool. So before, I was having to go into each individual account, when a student graduated or someone dropped out, going into each individual account and either adding or removing those links manually. So now with the batch patron modification tool, having the OPAC note as an option, you can now use that. So it's now a little bit easier, but in the beginning it was not. I was also noticing, though, that because we've increased the number of resources we're offering to our patrons, they're having to go to more than one place to do the same search. They're going to the library catalog, they're going to EBSCO, they're going to Project Muse, they're going to Oxford Biblical Studies Online. So that's not ideal. And also, as I've already mentioned, not all of our e-resources supported the referring URL authentication, and it's not that secure anyway. So, aha! I have an idea. What if the patrons only had to perform one search in one place for all of our electronic and print collections? Would that help anything? Well, that's where EBSCO Discovery Service came in. So our journey of implementing EDS, we started in the summer of 2015. So when we started implementing EDS. The basic process is that once you sign up with your salesperson, you get assigned to an EBSCO Discovery Specialist, and this is the person who's going to walk with you throughout the whole process of setup, testing, and then the final implementation. There is an extensive questionnaire that you have to fill out. It's online. You can save it as you're, so do a little bit, come back to it. After you submit it, you get a copy of it by email, which I have actually had to refer back to, oh, what did I tell them I wanted to happen? The questionnaire, it covers everything from, what you want your user interface to look like, the branding, but also a lot of the catalog customizations. And the catalog customizations can be complicated, but they're very critical to get right. And EBSCO does spend a lot of time, in that testing phase, going through everything with you. You can look at your test site, make sure that your data looks exactly like how you want it to look. And then even after you roll it out, if something still doesn't look right, they can go back and put in an order to rebuild the catalog, making whatever changes you need to make. So also as part of this process was setting up our holdings management and full text finder. I think it was at this point that full text finder was also being rolled out. So that, and even I feel like I'm still playing catch up with that because we had been moved from the A to Z to full text finder. You establish syncing with your catalog and EDS. So that can happen in multiple different ways. There's FTP, there's OAI PMH, there's Z3950. What we do with ours is we've got a cron job running on our Koha server to FTP our entire catalog. We do it every night, sends it to the EBSCO site, and then EBSCO processes that to update the catalog holdings in EDS. The OAI PMH, for those of you who were in my session this morning, I have that set up with our electronic, our digital archive that's on Omeka. So EBSCO just has the OAI PMH link to harvest records from there. I think that's set to either do daily or maybe weekly, because that one doesn't experience as much change. Z3950 is used for the real-time availability, and I cannot remember if ours is turned on or not. I think it's not, because there could be some, it can be problematic. There's a time lag with it, because even though it's real time, it's not real time. But because we send our catalog updates every night, and our circulation just isn't that great. We just don't have a high volume of circulation every day. I think that's what we opted to do, is just to rely on the FTP to send that information. And then also during the implementation process, we had a couple of options available to us. And I felt like I needed to make a decision. Do I want to move to the EDS interface, or do I want to do the setup of the EDS API in Koha? Now, because we were implementing EDS within a year of having migrated to Koha, I really wanted to keep Koha as our primary lens for our users, because you don't want to throw too much change at your users all at once. And so for some libraries who have catalogs that they really don't like how the OPAC looks, using the EDS interface is a big selling point, but that wasn't a big selling point for me. Instead, I wanted to use the API. And also in the setup process, for those of you who've used EBSCO products and you know about EBSCO admin, there's a profile for EDS, just like there's a profile for EBSCO host. Then there's another profile for the EDS API. And so it's really important in the beginning stages when you're getting this set up to make sure that what you have, what your discovery specialist helps you set up in the EDS profile is copied over into your EDS API. We had some databases and sources that were turned on in one and not the other, and I would do searches in both, and I'd get different search results, and it was confusing until we figured that out. So pass that along. So once we got everything implemented and I started really looking at how EDS and the Koha plugin was working, this is what I began to realize is we've got, our users now have the seamless search experience without leaving Koha. And their access to EDS is authenticated when they're logged into Koha. It's also authenticated by IP. And so this is great that we can now do this, because we couldn't do that before. The brick walls we ran into, though, is that we were not able to limit access to licensed content through EDS based on patron type. Now, we're an academic library. Our licenses cover off-campus access to our faculty, our staff, and our students, and then in some cases, alumni. It does not cover access to our community patrons, people who come in off the street, our local pastors and ministerial leaders in the area. It does not cover visiting students from other institutions. So in Koha, we have different patron types for each of these people that we allow to use our library. But EDS and the Koha API could not discern who they were. So anyone who had a Koha login could access all of our EBSCO content regardless of what their patron type was. And I thought this was a big problem. Also, it was only authenticating off-campus access to the EBSCO content. So even though Project Muse and Oxford Biblical Studies online content was findable, discoverable in using the EDS API plugin, if you clicked on a link to go to Project Muse, it would not carry you through because you can't set up referring URL technology for that, and there wasn't any way to carry that authenticated access over. So add to this kind of climate on campus. We've got a lot more anxiety. Our student body is mostly, I'd say average age of our, well, we've got students, we do range from the students who come straight from college to students who are in their 60s and 70s. Okay, so we have a huge range of students there, a lot of generational differences. We changed our curriculum so that we could be more accessible to commuters and people who are working full-time. So people are spending less time in the actual library. They're spending more time online. There's a higher emphasis on the online learning environment as well. So logins and being able to log in is essential, becoming essential at our school. And add on top of that, every login is different. So they had a login to their email. They had a login to the online learning system. They had a login to the library. They had a login to the course registration system. They had a login for at least 5 or 6 other things on top of that. So what do they do? They start to use the same password over and over and over again. Well, that's not good. That's not a good tech practice either. And so, being in the educational organization, we're trying to teach them good habits and teach digital literacy as well as information literacy. So, what are we going to do about this that can also kind of also address the confusion about, oh, but I thought I was logged into that, or, what do you mean I can't get to this because I'm over here? That type of thing. So that's when I say, okay, here's an idea. What if our patrons had to log in once to one place to get access to all of our resources? Second caveat to that, though, is what if students and faculty could use one login for all of our library resources and other campus resources? So that's when we started looking at OpenAthens. And as I start telling that story, you'll see why we're also brought in OAuth 2. So I won't spend a lot of time on this part because David and Mike did such a great job this morning, but OpenAthens is a SAML-backed single sign-on service. It's sold by, it's an EduServe product. It's sold and co-supported by EBSCO. It has an administrator dashboard, which I won't be able to demonstrate for you today because the administrator login has a second layer of IP. You have to be coming from a certain IP. to be able to get into the administrator login, so won't be able to show you that today. But you use that administrator dashboard to manage your resources, to manage your users, and to also set up your permission sets. One of the really neat things that I like about it is that there is this real-time auditing capability. So you can actually go up into the report section, do audit, and it will show you everybody who's been logged on the system. It's got the most recent login first. So you can be able, if you've got somebody, a patron, who's saying, I'm having trouble logging in, and you're trying to do tech support by email, I can then, wait 5 minutes. If I don't hear from the person, I can go into the OpenAthens, check the auditing. If I see that they got in, then I know they're good and I don't have to pester them anymore with emails, and I can, take a deep breath and go do something else. It also has, as Mike was saying this morning at lunch, it has this kind of long-term data collection ability, so you can run reports just for the last month, or for the last 3 months, or the last year, and be able to see who's been accessing which resources at which times, all kinds of various things broken down by patron type. So,
you want to live
okay, maybe if we have time. All right. So the process of implementing OpenAthens was very similar to EDS. We got assigned to another discovery specialist. And again, you have another extensive questionnaire to fill out. One thing that you have to figure out, or that we had to figure out pretty quickly, is which application is going to host your user data, okay? So part of the problem that we were experiencing is that we've got user data. When we're bringing in new students, we're entering their information for a Google account. Then we're entering it again to create a Moodle account. It got entered again to create their SONUS student records account. Then it gets entered again in Koha to create their library account. So now we're talking about OpenAthens. That user information is going to have to get to OpenAthens again. So one thing I had to figure out was, how can we do this where it's not, it makes life easier than being yet another account for our users. So I'll get back to that in just a second. Another big part of the setup process is that every resource, every electronic resource that you have, has to be set up, allocated, and tested. And EBSCO and the OpenAthens folks do all of that for you. What you do as part of your questionnaire is collect all of your resources. Now, the hard part for me was, well, yes, EBSCO manages most of our stuff, but I had this whole collection of online journal subscriptions that EBSCO, or I had print subscriptions that an online account was a part of it. I had to find all of those because we had never collected them all in one place before. So that took quite a bit of time. Some of these resources are very easy to set up. Some of them take more time. So you just have to prepare yourself that it's not like flipping a switch for all of them. Some of them, they do have to set up a custom resource just for you, just for your subscription. Then after all your resources are set up, then you take the Athenize links, and there is a tool within the OpenAthens Administrator dashboard where you can create those links yourself, or you can send EBSCO a list and they'll create them for you. for me. It just worked better to just use the tool. And then you go in and you replace every link to every electronic resource on your website and in your catalog with this OpenAthens link, this Athens link. So going back to where's our user data going to live, this was our conundrum. So we, as I explained before, we've got our user data, we enter it multiple times. We did not already have any kind of centralized Active Directory. So after a lot of digging and a lot of thinking and a lot of trying different things, and these were the two options that we had, two best options that I felt like we had. Option A was for OpenAthens to become our centralized Active Directory and gateway for library resources and all institutional applications. This would have been very costly for us, and it also would have put the library in the precarious position of managing student information. So I wasn't prepared to take on that responsibility. And the cost part, there are integrations so that OpenAthens can provide authenticated access into applications such as Moodle, but there would have been a lot of development costs involved in applying those technologies and tools that were built to make that happen. So that was just a cost we could not absorb. So option B was to choose an existing application or service that would feed information to OpenAthens as well as to our other institutional applications. And that's where OAuth 2 came in. So we have Google Apps for Education, which is now called G Suite for application. I don't like it, but G Suite, okay. So OAuth 2 is an authorization framework. It's used by Google. It's also used by Facebook, LinkedIn, several other networks. It's more economic. The integrations are more economical and more accessible than the integrations for Shibboleth and SAML. So what we did was we had OAuth 2 plugins because our students already have their Google account for their email. So we had OAuth 2 Google plugins installed in both Moodle and Koha. So now they're able to log in they're able to use their Google account, their seminary Google account, to get into their Koha library account and to get into Moodle. And I was a little industrious and found the OpenAthens documentation that Mike pointed out is so easy to follow and set up, and went ahead and set up a Google OAuth 2 connector when I really wasn't supposed to, but I did. I did get called on it, but we worked it out. We're still friends. So, but it was very easy to set that up. So now for students, so where we are right now at this point is students, faculty, staff, and those alums who still, like more recent alums who still have their seminary Google accounts, can use their Google account to now log into Koha. They log into Moodle, and they get access to all the resources in OpenAthens. Alumni who don't have institutional Google accounts get an OpenAthens account. So alumni still have two accounts. They have a Koha account and an OpenAthens account. But now we have a new problem. Well, and I didn't put this on the slide, so it wasn't exactly a problem, it was pain, is that with the Google connector, the information in Google, just we only had first name and last name and email address to pass on. The IT director does not put any other information in Google. So I would have to periodically go through the list of people who had been connecting to OpenAthens with Google and go down the list and say, oh, this person is an alum. So I need to go in and manually change their permission set to the alumni resources. So that was a pain. Then another new problem, though, is that when we use the EDS API, those links don't authenticate through OpenAthens. So even though in the EBSCO admin, we had set up OpenAthens and Athenized links in the API, if you do an EDS search in Koha for a resource and you click on a link that's supposed to take you to one of our Project Muse article, it would not use an Athenized link to authenticate to go into Project Muse. So, and also the uses, the clicks and everything, they don't get sent to OpenAthens as part of that data collection either. Okay. So I went through a process. I was asking, this was even before we rolled this out. So we rolled out OpenAthens in February of this year. And so I was even asking December, January, talking to the folks at Bywater, talking to the folks at EBSCO, I'm like, okay, what can we do to connect OpenAthens and Koha? Because if I could do that, then I wouldn't have to manually change permission sets. I wouldn't, our patrons would get passed through. So I got word that all that in Australia was starting on a plugin for Koha for OpenAthens, and would I be interested in beta testing? And I said, yes, absolutely. When are we going to have it ready? So the plugin was written for 1611. We were upgraded, funny story, we got upgraded to 1605 with Bywater in February when we were rolling out the OAuth 2. So because we had already been at 1605, when the 1611 upgrades started to roll out in March and April, we were down at the bottom of the list because we had just been upgraded to 1605. So even though the plugin was written for 1611 though, we went ahead and installed it on 1605, and I can report that it does work. So even though there's like a little warning there, it says try at your own risk, it does work. So it was a slow, drawn-out process, the whole beta testing experience, and I was definitely a part of that because life happens, and I'm a solo librarian, and I was getting ready to go on sabbatical, and there's just a lot going on. But all that had a lot going on, and Nick at Bywater had a lot going on, and so we would do one piece, and we would exchange emails, and then 2 weeks would go by, and then there would be, okay, I finally did this that we talked about 2 weeks ago. So that's kind of the pace of how it went. Again, because I was so busy myself, I wasn't too upset or worried about it. We found out the first testing that we did, it wasn't working right. Like, we got the plugin installed, but it was pretty clear, and I did the connector setup on the OpenAthens side, but for some reason, like, Koha wasn't talking to OpenAthens. So reported that, a couple weeks go by, all that says, oh, well, there's supposed to be some JavaScript on your site, and I don't find it on your site. Here's the JavaScript, can you put it in? So then a couple weeks goes by, again, an email from Nick, oh, okay, I put the JavaScript on your site, let me know how it works. So at this point, 4 weeks go by, because this is right up against my leaving for sabbatical, and of course, all hell breaks loose when you're about to go on vacation. So, so at this point, people started actually reporting that sometimes they wouldn't be able to get access, or they would get these denial from OpenAthens, but if they went another way, they would be able to get through. So what that was I found out that as soon as Nick had put the JavaScript on the website, it's time to stop. Okay.
Well, that's 3:10.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. So as soon as Nick had put the JavaScript on the site, that was when Koha started talking to OpenAthens. So what I had set up in OpenAthens was those patron types and wanting those to map and then assign the permission sets, allocate the permission sets based on patron type, because that was a big thing for me, right? A big thing for our library, so that our community patrons wouldn't have access to our license resources. So I had used the code, thinking, okay, machines talking to machines, they're going to send the code. And what was actually being communicated was the value. So, instead of patron type equaling faculty, it was patron type equaling LTS, faculty, and staff. So that was an easy fix. Once I figured that out, I just had to go in and change those settings to use the value coming from Koha, and voila, everything started to work. So the beautiful thing about this now, though, is that when we have students who graduate, so OpenAthens Koha will send the information to OpenAthens every time the person logs in. So when we have a student who graduates, we can change their patron type from student to alum, and now the next time they log in, their login doesn't change. I don't have to touch OpenAthens at all. But the next time they log in, Koha tells OpenAthens, oh, this user has a new patron type. And OpenAthens says, okay, they have access to these. This is their permission set now. So it works beautifully. I'm very happy with that part. The Koha, the plugin also works regardless of Koha login method. And so again, because we had implemented OAuth 2, this was really important because I wanted them to be able, for our patrons who, are alums who don't have the seminary email address, they can use the Koha login, use their Koha username and password, and they get in. Or they can use the login with Google, do OAuth 2, and once they're into Koha, that's when it authenticates with OpenAthens. So it doesn't matter which login method they use, OpenAthens will authenticate that user after they've successfully logged in. So that works very nicely. I also want to point out that the discovery searches in Koha are run a lot more smoothly now that we have the OpenAthens plugin in place. One of the biggest pet peeves that I had with the EDS API plugin when we first implemented it was that you could do a search, and if you're not, do a discovery search, you're not logged in, you would see some results would show up, and then other results would just be blank, and it would say log in to view this result. So, okay, user says, oh, nope, I forgot to log in. I'll go log in real quick. So they go log in, then they have to re-execute the search. Even if they've, refreshed the browser several times, it would still say log in to view this result for about 5 minutes. I think that's how long it took the servers to be able to talk to each other so that the result list would finally appear in full. That only happens if someone logs in, and then that purple banner up at the top that says authenticating for OpenAthens, please wait. If the user executes a search while that purple banner is still up, then the authentication doesn't go through and you get the login to view this result in your result list. So It doesn't take but a few seconds, but again, that's something I'm going to have to coach our students and patrons about, is to take their time and be patient. So yeah, and then just the only other thing is with the, I know. So with the Google OAuth 2 login, we're still encountering one small issue. So if a person tries to access a resource, do a search, then they're not logged in, but they try to use Google OAuth 2 to log in, they won't get redirected back to their search. And that is an issue with the OAuth 2 plugin with Koha. So that brings me to our ultimate goals of being able to access everything in one seamless transfer, whether you're a student or community patron on campus or off campus. And I'd say with OpenAthens, EDS, Koha, we're about 90% there. With Koha and OAuth 2, I'd say we're about 75% there. So that's where we are. We're nearly there. Thanks so much. I'm sorry this went long. If you have any questions, this is where you can find me.
Real quick, Micah.
Yes.
So they're logging in with their Google accounts.
Yes.
Is that what you had loaded into the borrower records in Koha as the user ID with their Google email address? Or is the plugin able to look at a different field of the borrower record to make that match?
So OAuth 2 looks at what's in the email field,
Okay.
not what's in the username field. Okay? So the email field has to match their seminary email account for them to be able to log in using that. And I did, with the OAuth 2, I did restrict it to our seminary domain. So that's an option with the OAuth 2 plugin, is do you want to just leave it open to any Google account, or if you only want it to be, a certain domain.
Okay.
So I did restrict it to our lancasterseminary.edu domain.
Okay. I was just curious because that's one of the problems we run into with like LDAP or Shibboleth is you have to establish that match point with the field in the borrower record so that when they log in, Koha knows that, okay, you've got these books checked out and these holds placed and
Right.
this kind of stuff.
Yeah, so the match happens on the email field.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, yeah.
Christopher's going to do some announcements, like,
Oh,
right now.
So sorry if y'all miss out on a door prize.